Welcome back to Supreme Fuzzler with Escape to the House of Mummies, Venture Brothers, Season 2, Episode 4. Thank you for joining me, everybody. I am Supreme Fuzzler here. Before I get into the episode, which is, of course, Escape to the House of Mummies, a great comedic episode that's going to be a good... I'm not sure how canon it is, but it also has a lot of good story aspects. But before all that, I wanted to stress, thank you to anyone who is listening at this point, and especially for this, the podcast discussion stuff, to my new subscribers. I hit the 100 subscriber mark. I cannot believe it, honestly. It is so amazing. So thank you guys for joining me and listening to this and being a part of the Venture community. And I've just been talking about Venture. I just am so amazed that doing these clips that are like, you know, any kind of ad stuff goes to Venture Brothers themselves, obviously, but it's like, whatever. It gave me traffic and it made me able to talk about something I really enjoy, and it's great to see people be also into it and all the comments talking about it and discussing different theories, and that's been really fun to see different people's theories about certain stuff. Like, it's just so incredible. So thank you guys for being here and talking to me about this. So without further ado, let's get into this episode though. It starts up with showing a pyramid and being like, last time on the Venture Brothers Escape to the House of Mummies. And which obviously we never saw. When I was a child, I used to be so confused and be like, where did I miss an episode? Because I'd watched this on TV in Adult Swim, and I was like, did I legitimately miss an episode? And it would be, I think there was a good year where I truly believed that I just always missed Escape to the House of Mummies Part 1 all the time. But there is no Part 1, obviously. There just isn't. So we have a pyramid. It goes to this bird guy talking to this egg and doing a bunch of Egyptian Indiana Jones style mumbo jumbo, and it pumps the perfect man who's eating his foot, as Rusty points out, which the guy's like, he's been doing that all day. Damn, so funny. It then shows Rusty and the boys with Sigmund Freud, Dr. Freud, and Caligula, and about how they need to get the Hand of Osiris apparently somewhere. And Caligula's like, they're like, where's the Hand of Osiris? And they had the Caligula guy hide it. And so he just pulls it out of his ass, basically, because Caligula's a freaky bastard. And they just put it on the floor there. Gosh. Ugh. And it's really great because Freud's like looking at it like, so interesting. And it then shows Rusty messing with some people trying to be a big-ass forearm god because he thinks they're savages, but they're not, and they're actually just, they just dress up Egyptian style. And then Brock throws the flashlight that they were using and just destroys the area just to kill them all because it's Brock Sampson. Amazing. Then goes to Brock and the crew and the Venture family, and they're like, we have to kill the perfect man. The D and Hank are like, we'll clean up after him and keep him. And like, no, he's an abomination. Get off him. So fun. It then shows these two dudes who apparently have Hank and Dean, and then Brock comes out of nowhere, grabs them, and flies away on a hoverboard or some shit. And they start shooting at him, and then one of them runs out of bullets and then throws a gun at them, kind of like how they used to see in old movies and TV shows. And then the other guy's like, I have more bullets, Yeah, I know, but it just looks so cool. Well, go get it. Fine. Brilliant. This episode's comedic gold. Watch this series, by the way. I just want to point out, in every episode of my talking about this series, Adult Swim, all credit to Jason Publica, I forget how to say that name, and Doc Hammer, and all the writers and voice actors. This series is fantastic. Continuing on, though. Then it's some guy's like, I'm about to kill your sons, and because he's about to execute Hank and Dean, and Rusty's like, join the club. And then the bird guy's like, bring them to the Hall of Sorrows. And then the series is like, alright, now for part 2 on Escape to the House of Mummies. And it's the Venture family being inside this like weird-ass looking tomb kind of thing. And I agree with Rusty, it's like, it doesn't really seem like a hall, honestly. And they're not really impressed with the Hall of Sorrows at all. So fun. Dean and Hank can't fit through the hole, and Rusty gets all complaining about how, when I was a boy adventurer, that's all I did. I think, if I recall how this is going down, this is like the first time that they're really exploring the Rusty Venture, the adventurer stuff. I forgot that they don't discuss that he was the biggest boy adventurer of all time back in the day as much. They had kind of mentioned some stuff because he was obviously, these boys are inheriting a legacy, and that he was part of a legacy as well. But it was more pointing towards the super science and legacy, kind of like in a Johnny Quest way, instead of a boy adventurer kind of style that this is going to portray in the end, or trying to portray, at least with this episode especially. It's interesting to think about. Then Spike come out of the walls and are basically closing in on them, and Hank suggests that they call Orpheus, which Rusty rebuffs, but Brock's like, he has the only idea, so we gotta try it. And Rusty's like, I'd rather die. And Brock's like, alright, you heard your father. Let's line it up so it hits your brain and your heart so you die instantly. Alright, people, come on. Rusty's like, fine. Calls up Orpheus and is like, we're trapped in a cliche. Can you use your mumbo-jumbo magic to help us? No, Orpheus is raking their yard, hilariously. But, no, I don't think I could do that. Well, what can you do? Spike, and like, well, I could astral project myself there. Sure, come watch us die because of spiked walls. Spiked walls? How fast? Well, slower than haunted house spiked walls, but not quite as slow as evil scientist spiked walls. Good. Dean, are you there, boy? Picture my daughter naked. Looks, you lunatic, stop trying to inherit my estate and try to save us. No, Venture family. You must trust me. Think harder, boy. She's kissing you on the mouth. She's using her tongue. I've located you. And he basically does a bunch of magic to using Dean as a catalyst, apparently. This episode really showcases like the capabilities of not only Orpheus but also Rusty and his powers. It is intriguing. So he stops the spike walls, and straight up does. Knocks both the boys out, it seems, and Rusty's like, I'm gonna crawl through this hole and get the hell out of here so that I can rescue you guys. See ya. Which then it shows Rusty, assumably Rusty, coming down with the plane and landing, but it shows him hit the statue of Jonas and break it, which is one of the things I want to point out because I believe that statue is fixed by next episode, truly showing that this was one of those cartoon episodes that happen where, you know, everything's fixed by the end in the next episode, which is not common in Venture Brothers at all. A lot of times everything is continuity, and even stuff that happens in this episode, I say, is pretty fucking important and pretty like necessary. So then the bird guy comes back and is basically like, who broke the Hall of Sorrows? Like, Brock's like, what was supposed to happen? And oil is supposed to come out of that mouth after the spiked walls come down and close in on you. And the servant dude or the henchman is just like, oh, I put voil in there. Like, what the hell is voil? It's some sheer fabric. I heated it up in the dryer. What how the hell is that torture? Are you an idiot? Get out of here. I don't even want to look at you. And believers these days. That's right, he's a believer. And then he's like, what happened to the other guy? We ate him. And he's like, you're trying my patience. And then he sneezes and is freaking out about his mask. And then Brock just punches and knocks him out, obviously. Because, you know, I don't know why Rusty didn't stick around. I guess because if he does get an awesome item, he could just get out of here. Anyways, Orpheus is like, comes and finds Rusty and is like, I haven't slept a wink since I rescued you. I've been so worried, and I'm still worried. Rusty's like, well, you didn't really save us. They're still back there, man. And Orpheus is like, we gotta rescue them. Rusty's like, no worries. There's a pyramid. I can get those walls down easily with one of these devices. Orpheus goes off about, what kind of pyramid cult do you mean? Like, Osiris, did you ever hear of him? Fucking Orpheus goes off about, like, the last son of a nut, the son of a Tem, who was born, who's supposed to be everlasting. Yes, I've heard of him. Do you even know what I do? I don't know, do parlor tricks? Which leads to the argument between Rusty and Orpheus about science and magic, where Orpheus just basically goes off a bunch of magic things he can do, and Rusty very logically counters that he has every thing he says. Rusty's like, I got a device who can do that. I got a mind control device to do that one thing, and do a laser to destroy this lab. I have a Tesla coil to shoot lightning. And when he does fire hands, he's like, here's a match. Whew. Yeah. It is pretty funny and awesome. And so Orpheus challenges him to a shrinking contest. And Rusty accepts, but as he's leaving, Orpheus is like, I wouldn't look for that shrink ray. You sold it to the albino and his companion. Which is interesting to think about, because I thought he didn't at the end of Tag Failure when we do that whole scenario. But as I said, this does happen. And then the whole, like, does this continuity happen? Does that shrink ray come back up? I don't think so. And that's my point. Like, I think they get rid of the shrink ray with this episode, which I'm like, if there's that... What is continuity in this episode? This episode is confusing because of that. But it's fun. I love it. It's a brilliant episode. And then it goes back to Brock and Hank and them, who are, like, searching in a tomb for Dean. They find Dean, who's just a head. Whatever the hell happened, I don't know. And then they're like, a mummy has a magic scepter that can do this. Oh, that's right, that's what happened. And then they find the mummy, and it's like, that's Mummy Muggy. He's a good mummy. And Mummy likes chin rub. And fucking Brock's like, this is getting stupid. Where the hell is your father? So true. What the hell is happening? Goes back to Orpheus, who is practicing a shrinking spell, and he accidentally shrinks his desk. Oh, I never thought about this. I just realized he shrinks the desk with the book that was casting that spell. I never realized. And then he can't cast the spell. You think he'd have a spell to grow it. But he's like, whatever. He calls Triana and is like, do you still have that dollhouse? I'll just give this to her. It's weird. Then we go to Billy and White. Lovely characters. They walk into their trailer house and are like, our place has been trashed. And Billy's like, hell yeah. And they're like, what? White's, of course, like, what the hell you mean? This is a clear arching. We have an arch nemesis. Finally, we've arrived. And then they hear a crackling and they're like, he's still here, Billy. And fucking Billy's like, come out, Nemesis. I will hit you with my laser hand if you do not move. If you come out and don't move. And it's Rusty. And they're like, Dr. Venture? You're our arch nemesis? And so it cuts back after a commercial, and it's like, Billy being like, it's industrial espionage. You have come to take our secrets. You've been foiled because we have none. Rusty explains that he came for the shrink ray, basically. White's like, just don't ask for it, just bust into my house. I already apologized for that. No, you didn't. When? I love the dynamic and the way they act, and God, Rusty's an asshole. And Billy brings out the shrink ray, which is in a package destroyed, and fucking White apparently thought there might be a treasure map in there, so he kind of wrecked it on his like attempt to figure that out. Rusty's like, the hell? And Billy's like, don't even. I've already been over this with him tons of times. Fucking hilarious. Rusty's like, you guys gotta fix it for me, with me. And they're like, dude, you broke into our house. And he's like, fine, I'll pay you. Which apparently that's all they wanted, and they really are happy. I want to ask, really quick, as part of my discussion of this episode, how much money do you think he pays those two? Scientists are paid really well. So... And Rusty has a decent amount of cash, assumingly. Not, he's not rich, obviously. He's not fucking rolling in dough, as they imply. But he apparently has enough money to pay a motherfucker. Fucking broke into their house, though. Truly, who breaks into their friend's house? Don't just ask for it. God, guys. Ugh, so bad. Rusty's such an intriguing character, and his growth is fun. Then it goes to Brock, who is choking out Edgar Allan Poe, and asking him where the Hand of Osiris is, which is apparently under the floorboards. He undoes the chokehold after he says that, and Hank's like, you think we messed everything up with our time machine? We totally messed with that guy's life. And Dean, who is apparently head now, is on Mummy Muggy, is like, I wouldn't worry about that. Because, yeah, if anything, my existence, crazy. Which, by the way, I mean, this was obvious in the beginning when they were like Caligula and shit, but Time Machine and all that. This episode's madness and so fun. Also, Brock is like, I gotta admit, I always want to get Edgar Allan Poe's head in a headlock. That thing is like a pumpkin. It's so fun. Then we go to Orpheus, who is opening, apparently, Triana's closet. Because she comes in and is like, I knew my closet was cursed. And he's like, no, it's just the portal to the Necropolis. And you had to have your own bathroom, so that it had to be on the west side of the wing. After arguing with her about stuff, which it intriguingly does flush out Triana's character a little bit. Because she's like, I wear the same outfit every day because I'm afraid of the closet, because I thought I was going crazy. Which is an intriguing showing of, like, she knows that closet's that way and never fucking uses it, and that's why she dresses the way she does all the time. It's kind of a fun way to explain that away in its own way. In the end, Orpheus knocks her out and just erases her memory, though, this whole scenario. Because he's like, I can't deal with this, basically. Then goes to Rusty, White, and Billy, who are doing essay or questionnaires, apparently, of some kind. They got the shrink ray in the middle between them. So at first you think they're doing something in regards to the shrink ray. And there's a point where White's even like, why didn't I think of that before? And then when they reveal what they were talking about, it's basically a weird questionnaire. Like, Joyce DeWitt was number 2, and number 1 was Bonnie Bedelia. Meow. The mother from Die Hard? The stone fox from A Mother's Right, the Elizabeth Morgan story? Yes. Why? What did you put down? I misunderstood the question. Well, and apparently Billy completely misunderstood all the questions, basically, and put down, like, wet sock and a thermos and some really stupid shit for his answers. And Billy's like, misunderstood the question. Can we just get back to work now, please? It's so true, but it's so funny. Like, another one's Dustbuster, a corner attachment. Like, so funny. Why, like, that sounds dangerous. We then see Orpheus, who's apparently gone into the closet, which then you see a Cerberus, which he throws a fireball at, and then H. John Benjamin. Voices of Archer, Bob from Bob's Burger, Archie from Archer, of course, and obviously, that's what I meant. And my favorites were Coach McGurk and Jason from Home Movies. This man is so funny and so good. He is such a brilliant, brilliant writer, a very fun person. If anyone's never seen Home Movies, I would highly recommend. It's a great 90s animated series that was written by the people, Brendan Small, who writes Metalocalypse, and has some great voices in it, including some writing from H. John Benjamin, who is obviously the main voice actor in Archer, but also, if I understand correctly, the main writer for, like, Bob's Burgers and Archer. One of the two. Or both. I'm unsure. He might be both. Anyways, so he's the Master. The Master is obviously, it seems to be a very powerful character who is educating Orpheus, it seems. Orpheus points out that he's not Argus, because he kind of says he is, and that he's actually Cerberus. And the Master's like, see, you're a know-it-all, and no one likes a know-it-all. And it's so funny. And he has him starts licking his own testicles. You know how dogs do? One of his heads starts doing that. And he does a whole explanation about, like, it feels so great, but this problem is I taste it. My own genitals. In my mouth. It's a conundrum. Orpheus kind of tries to continue. He's like, dude, shut up. Don't you know how good this feels? Oh, that's right. Your wife left you because you don't know how good this feels. Savage. The Master definitely savages fucking Orpheus every time, but he's not wrong. As he explains in this whole argument real quick here, is that you are a wussy about love. You suck at that. You're obviously just so a workaholic. A know-it-all workaholic type. And it just doesn't work, man, for making a love. We then go back to Brock and the crew, which we see Rusty in with the ear, and it's funny how Hank's like, oh god, they captured us again. And Brock's like, what time did you set it to? 1250 AD, or 2005 AD or some shit, if I recall. And he's like, no, I think you set it to AM. And that they were basically at the morning before, earlier, that same day. And then Edgar Allan Poe's head stuck in these crevices because his head's too big. I've done it again. Then shows the Billy and White and the crew and Rusty testing the shrink ray, shrinking helper down to a small tiny like doll, not even like doll, it's miniature basically, and how like a cigarette's bigger than the helper now, showing that it kind of works. And then they're like, we need to test it on a human. White points out he's an albino and he can't do it, because shit just destroys him. Rusty points out he's a single father and that those boys need him. These are very true facts, I will not deny. Billy's reasoning is that he's a virgin, essentially. He does a whole, spiel about it, I've never tasted the flower of a woman. Which then, it's funny, Pete and White basically do a whole metaphor for eating a girl out. I don't take many trips down south myself. It's just like, guys, gotta please your ladies. Anyways, they basically vote Billy to do it. He trying to goes off about how, let me try to taste a woman, and he's like, nah, bruh. Just get on there, virgin. Just get up there and get tested. Rusty even says, like, it's not even murder. It's just a very late abortion. Damn. The Master and Orpheus now are talking to each other. The Master's basically kind of advising him about how you let Triana go out and party all night and don't, like, control her very well. And he's like, why would you think she doesn't respect me? Like, well, you let Rusty Venture just trample all over you, man. It's just how it works. Of course she's not going to really respect you overall. And then his leg starts bouncing, and he's like, check it out. Check out the leg. So awesome. It's so fun. Then, back to Rusty and the crew. White hits Billy, and they're like, oh, it doesn't really do anything, although thank God you hit him this time. And they're like, no, nothing happened. And as they're saying this, Rusty's chair squeaks, as we think, and Billy's like, no, you shrunk my lungs, oh God. And fucking White goes off about, oh God, that smell. Rusty, was that you? Like, oh, that's the sound that chair made a second ago? It wasn't the chair. Billy, I hate you guys. So good. Such a great episode. So much fun characters. What I like about it is just so much building of these characters' relationships is what this does. And it's just intriguing little events. Continuing, though. We go back to Brock and his crew, which now, it's a really good music pops in. And it's like, all right, Caligula and Hank, you get the rear. And Caligula kind of gets up on Hank, and he's like, you know what, never mind. Caligula, you can take the second wave alone. You and Freud and Hank will take up the rear. And then he's like, Dean, you ready? And Dean is riding the perfect man, and while he's also, his head's on the mummy with 2 fucking shotguns. It's pretty interesting and cool. Ready, Brock? All right. When the doors open, me, Poe, and me, because another Brock, will rush in. And the other Brock's like, you're going to kill him as soon as he shows up. Oh, you know it. Charge! So awesome. So great. Then it's back to Billy and White and Rusty. They apparently shrink Billy's head. It's pretty funny how it's really small. Then they're like, alright, we're going to fix him. While they try to fix him, and they fucking make him like a giant, basically. Oh, like Tobey Maguire, but in a bad Hulk costume, as White says. And Rusty's like, I gotta get the camera. And then it's Orpheus and the Master. Orpheus is basically doing a whole revelation epiphany thing where he's like, we're nothing in the eyes of the cosmos. Tiny, insignificant men, and our squabbles are insignificant. And Master's like, go win that incredibly gay contest, go! Rusty and Billy and Wyatt are trying to work on the thing, but they're basically can't figure it out. And Rusty's like, I give up, man. There's no way I can do this. I was a good boy adventurer, but I suck at this. And Wyatt's like, you never say die. Like, die. I do it, bro. It's just how it works. Billy's like, you weren't just a great boy adventurer. You were the best. And he's like, hold on one moment. Orpheus is calling out, and Rusty calls out that he's in the lab. Orpheus basically walks in and is like, you win. I give up, and you win. And fucking Rusty's like, oh, okay, the bet was right for $1 million, right? Nothing. It was a gentleman's bet. How small did you get? Oh, I got nowhere. If you would have kept your mouth shut, you would have won the gentleman. Billy shows up with a lunchbox. It's funny, White's like, snacks, good call. And like, no. Shows him a Rusty Venture lunchbox. Which, this is important in this episode, and kind of one of the most important, if not the only important thing in this episode. No, there's like 3 or 4. I'll talk about them in a second, but this is showing that the Rusty Venture was a show. Rusty Venture show was a big thing, big enough to have lunchbox material and stuff. Apparently, I've been reading a book that has Dark Hammer and Jason Public's talking about the writing of the series, and they actually had this literally made, which was they talked about how it was kind of dumb of them to make a box of Rusty Venture merch when they didn't, not Venture Brothers merch, basically. But it's a really fun piece of equipment, basically. Showing that Rusty was one time really popular, and Billy basically explains that he became a super scientist, essentially, because of Rusty Venture's adventures. And how Wyatt even points out, every kid wanted to be you, man. He inspired a generation, essentially, to be boy adventurers or super scientists and other such things. It's really interesting to think about. Orpheus is like, let's go to my sitting room and eat some hors d'oeuvres or rice pudding or something. And as they're leaving, though, they're like, oh my god, I think I forgot something. And Rusty's like, oh my god, you're right. I left the light on. And as he's walking in, it shows him crushing Helper with his foot. And then outro. After the outro, it shows Hank and Brock in fucking a snowland. Well, first it also is like, next time on Venture Brothers, Part 3 in the Escape to the House of Mummies. Shows in a snow place, and Hank's like, I want the caveman to eat me. Hold on, Hank. Cut him open. And the other Brock has to cut open Edgar Allan Poe, and he does the fucking Star Wars line of, I thought he smelled bad on the outside. And they're fucking the other Brock's, Doc! Calling out for fucking Rusty. It's so cool and awesome. I really wish there would have been an episode 3. Oh, man. So, with that, this is the end of Escape to the House of Mummies Part 2. There is no Part 3. I will spoil that now. There was never a Part 1, except for the events that they showed us. This episode is definitely used to, it even says in this book that I have, that it was used as a way to do an adventure episode and kind of just have a free-form writing system. They could do whatever they want in this episode, truly. And it really shows with what they do in this episode. But the Master's introduced in this episode. I actually was thinking, literally in the middle of while I was doing this, what if the Master fixed everything at the end of this episode? Essentially, fucking reset everything. The problem is that there are some things that are, technically used later. Like, the shrink ray being gone is a thing that happens. It never is shown again, as far as I can remember. Because it's destroyed in this. And they stop trying to use it. Oh no, it does come back. They have to repair it. But when do they repair it? That's ambiguous, too. Whether or not they actually repair the shrink ray, because it is used later. I totally forgot it was, but it definitely was. Multiple times, as a matter of fact. Now that I think about it. God, fucking failure. Anyways. So the shrink ray is, I'm pretty sure, is repaired at the end of this episode. Basically. It's so close to being repaired that they basically have it by the next time we see it. The Master being introduced and being utilized. H. John Benjamin, great voice actor, 100% amazing. Orpheus's world, what he does is really important. Like, how he is truly fucking magical. He has powers, true powers, and is connected to Rusty's weird adventure world through that way. But Rusty's oddly skeptical despite being part of that world. Okay, this is what's weird. He's not skeptical per se. He's just unimpressed. Consistently. The whole thing about Orpheus is like, I saved you from across the globe. And Rusty's like, I can do that with 5 different inventions in this room. So why the hell should I give a damn? My father was a super scientist, and his father was a super scientist, and his father was a super scientist. Oh, no, wait. I think he was a milliner. Anyways, it is an intriguing little showing. It also sets up the Rusty Venture show and the fact that he was a super boy adventurer that inspired a generation of super scientists and boy adventurers. It also, with Hank and Dean, see, and that's where, okay, Hank and Dean doesn't really, that's the thing. Brock, Hank, and Dean, and the majority of the people who get left behind, there's really hard to say if any of that's important in any way. Time machines are used, though. And again, I'm not sure if the Master could have just reset everything with magic, considering he got involved, kind of, indirectly. It's hard to say what is real and what is not. So, as we progress, though, in the series, I would like to hear you guys' opinion. Again, thank you for the hundreds of plus subscribers now. It's so amazing. I'll be seeing you in the next episode, which is 20 Years to Midnight, and I might just be hearing, ignore me, some more in the next episode. Like, comment, and subscribe if you're on the YouTube, and hit me up wherever you can. Goodbye, this is Supreme Fuzzler. Go Team Venture!